Hi, welcome to Detox Your Life, where we're going to release toxins, restore your vitality, and create a life you love. And I cannot wait to have you meet my friend today, Nicole Turner, the Detox Strategist. Nicole holds a graduate degree in both education and business. She has a graduate certificate in diversity studies and is a certified human capital strategist, strategic HR business partner, and a process certified change manager. Nicole is also a certified life strategist coach and a certified lifestyle and weight management coach. Nicole really can do it all. She's known as the Detox Strategist, and as such, she helps individuals as well as organizations identify the toxicities in their individual lives, their relationships, as well as their organizations. And she sees what's preventing them from reaching their full potential and then helps them to develop the strategy that they need to reach their goals. Nicole, I cannot thank you enough for being here today. I really appreciate
for having me. I'm so appreciative.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. The pleasure is all ours. I can't wait to hear everything. So when I hear workplace toxins or workplace toxicity, I immediately think about the windows don't open, black mold in the ducts, the humming of the lights, the EMF, and all that kind of stuff. But that's not really what you're talking about when you talk about toxic work environments.
No, because those are the things that most people think about. But when I talk about toxic work environments, I'm talking about toxic employees, toxic leadership, toxic culture, because those things play a very big role in the success and the demise of an organization. So that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. And so what does that look like, that toxic work environment? What could that look like?
So let's think about it. So many organizations right now are going through reorgs. They're being bought out by other companies. They have new leadership coming in. They have turnover. We're dealing with workplace bullying. And as we know now lately in the news, we're dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace. All of those are signs of workplace toxicity. And what people fail to realize is if you don't deal with those toxins in your personal life, you bring that into the environment either as a toxic employee or as a toxic leader. An example of a toxic employee is somebody who's always keeping chaos going in the organization, whether it's gossip, whether it's they're not holding their end of the bargain when it comes to the workload, or they're shifting the blame, or they're just present physically, but they're not present as far as doing the work and doing it in a good way. And when it comes to toxic leaders, they're individuals too. So they have personal things that they may be bringing in, or they may be disgruntled, or they may have issues with their upper leadership. And they're coming into the environment where they're being micromanagers, whether they're not dealing with the toxic employees that they have working for them, or they're just not providing the right type of leadership for employees. Because just like in our personal lives, a lot of times children model the behaviors they see with their parents. The same thing takes place in the work environment. Yeah, you have these rules and regulations in place. You have strategies in place. But if you see that your direct supervisor or your leadership is saying, to heck away with the rules, I'm going to do things my way, and that goes against the overall policy of the organizations, where you put employees in a really bad situation. This is my direct supervisor. This is the person responsible for my performance. Who do I follow? Do I follow this person who I know is going down the wrong path, or do I follow what I know to be right? And all of those things play a role in a toxic environment. And now let me go back to the toxic employee for a minute. And I'm actually about to write an article about this. People don't understand the role that the toxic employee plays as an insider threat when it comes to cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is a big thing now. We're getting all these different breaches that are going on. And some of those, believe it or not, may have started internally with a toxic employee. Employee who's unhappy, an employee who may just be at work and they're downloading things and they've let different malware come in, or employee that may actually be installing something on his or her computer, or employee that may be selling proprietary information to somebody else. So nobody really thinks about how the toxic employee is also an insider threat to the cybersecurity strength of an organization as well.
Wow. So how can we help people? I think about, not wanting to take your stress from work home. We hear about that. Yes. We focus on that, right? Leave it at the door, take 10 extra minutes in the car before you walk in so you can just breathe and gather yourself before greeting your family. But I haven't thought about it in the reverse, getting into the office in the daytime and how we arrive on the scene, so to speak. So what can a person do to ensure that they show up without bringing a lot of baggage with them?
It's very difficult because it's not like we can just walk in and peel off layers and become this totally different person.
Right.
But it is very important. And I advise everybody, in the mornings when you're driving to work, think about what you're listening to when you're driving to work. And even when you're going home, because a lot of times you take that home with you and it affects your personal life. So if you start, and a lot of people are rushing in the morning. If you're like me, sometimes the snooze button is my best friend. So how you wake up and start your day is a great indication of how your day is going to go. So if you start your day, you're very hurriedly, you're rushing, you're grouchy because, oh shoot, I'm going to be running late. I don't have time to get my morning coffee. I don't have time to get my breakfast. So it has already altered your mood, already altered your center. So you're going into the workplace in a bad mental state. And heaven forbid, I live in the DC area, so the traffic can be horrendous. All it takes is one person on the road, and that can alter. So when you're in the car, what are you listening to? Are you listening to news talk? Are you listening to gospel music? Or are you listening to classical music? Or are you listening to poetry? What are you listening to? Sometimes I'm driving and I listen to absolutely nothing because it's just something about the silence that gives you a certain peace. So a lot of how your day starts once you get to the workplace actually begins before you get there. How you wake up in the morning, how your drive in, or if you take public transit, what are you doing while you're on the transit? Are you reading a book, listening to an audio book? Things that kind of get your day started in the right way. Yeah. And then once you get into the office, we all have, those of us who worked in an office environment, we've had coworkers who the minute you come in, they want to complain about something. Mm-hmm. And if you have those type of people in your work environment, the first thing you do is say, hey, stop. I'm just getting started. This is not how I want to start my day. There's always something good to find in the day, and kind of change the narrative. If somebody is talking negative and then you shift it to something positive, I can assure you for that brief second, they're going to look inward and be like, oh, well, clearly Nicole doesn't want to go down this road. And they'll either go talk to somebody else or they'll shift what they're talking about. So all of those things start, and people really do underestimate how you start your day really impacts the trajectory of your entire day. And so that's so important, I think, when it comes to when you walk into the work environment.
Yeah. So is this something, how can an organization, right? So if I run a company and I have employees and I'm not home with them, right? I can't be babysitting them and make sure that they're doing all these things. What can I do, or what can an organization do, or what can a leader do on their part to help facilitate, that good, positive energy, at the start of the day? What is there anything an organization or a leader can do?
Well, so one of the things I find with organizations is they have difficulties with the whole interpersonal skills. When it comes to management and leaders, you teach them how to handle the budget, the human resource piece, the technical sides of work, but you don't really do a good job teaching them how to handle the people side. Right. So for some leaders, they really don't want to have a job where they deal with the people side, but they want to get promoted, and promotions require them to deal with the people. So in some instances, it's very difficult because who that leader is as an individual, they're not strong even in their personal life on the interpersonal side. So for some individuals, like I can think of one manager, one leader where I've worked. Every morning he would come out of his office and he would go down to the cubicles of the aisles of all his employees and say good morning to them, and have, whether he's talking about the football or their kids, he remembers things about their personal life. Oh, your kid had a recital. How was it? And he kind of dictates the atmosphere because he's a people person. But that's not how everybody is. Yeah. Some of those bosses who say, I have an open door policy, but when you walk into the open way of their door, they're looking at you like, why are you here?
Right.
So you're sending a message that even though the door is open, I really don't want to be bothered. Right. And so that is a challenge. And when I go into organizations, one of the things I talk to them about is really preparing their leaders to be on the people side, because the higher up you go, it's really not about the technical knowledge you have. You hire the people who are good at the technical. It's really about empowering and motivating and inspiring employees to want to do a good job, to want to follow you, to want to make sure they're following the mission of the organization. And if you have somebody that's just not their strong suit, it's gonna take a lot more work. And it's not fair to say, well, just move that person out of that position, but it's gonna take more. And then you have some people, I'm so amazed by the micromanagement piece. And I can remember at a previous job, I had a boss who was a micromanager. Mm-hmm. And she was a micromanager, one, because she had a micromanager. Mm-hmm. And two, she says, well, I know how I would be. Like, there was a telework policy and she didn't telework. And she said, because I knew if I teleworked, I wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. I would be doing all these other things. So sometimes what they give employees is what they see that they would be doing if they were in that position. And then on the flip side, they model certain behaviors that their leadership model. And as they're growing up the career ladder, if nobody ever addressed that leader's toxic behavior, even when they're an employee, when they come into leadership, but they continue to elevate, the message that you're sending is this behavior is correct, because that person sees that they keep getting promoted up. And that's why I say promoting up and promoting out is detrimental to the survival of an organization if you have not dealt with a toxic employee and a toxic leader, and that's the person that you're promoting up and promoting out because you're trying to get rid of them. But in fact, you're telling them this is appropriate behavior, but it's really not. Right. So to get back to your original question, it's very difficult. You have to handle each person differently. Those people who are not strong on the interpersonal skills, it may be a requirement for them to take emotional intelligence classes or things dealing with interpersonal communication classes, or pair them up with a mentor who's strong in the areas where you see that they're weak. Mm. So, but somebody who's already really good at that, they probably already setting the tone for and they have an environment that makes employees feel comfortable sharing if there's an issue going on.
Interesting. So that's from the leader perspective looking down. As an employee coming in, if I have a toxic manager, right? I have somebody who's micromanaging me, who's, really, I come in, I'm happy, I'm ready to go. And then this person walks in and wants to nitpick everything I'm doing and isn't happy working there, what can that employee do? If the roles are reversed and it's the leadership that is having the problem, it's causing the problem, where does the employee turn? What can the employee do?
And so some environments, of course, they have a chain of command. But the first thing I often recommend is having a very respectful conversation with your direct supervisor. Like, hey, I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. I'm feeling like nothing I do is good enough. Can you give me recommendations on how I can improve? Show that you genuinely care about doing a good job. And then put that manager in a position where you're kind of asking them for some mentorship, some guidance. And if that doesn't work, then the next step is to go to their boss. But you followed the first step, which is to go directly to that person, and then go to their boss. If that doesn't work, a lot of organizations have unions. And so the next step would be to consult with the union. And if you see it's an outright egregious behavior, and then you have the EEO area that you can go to. You have a grievance process. But I always say give the boss an opportunity to correct his or her behavior, because sometimes people are just not aware. Right. You never know what's being forced down on that supervisor that's causing them to behave a certain way. So always start there. And if there's no resolution there and the behavior with that boss gets worse, now that you brought it to their attention, then I would definitely recommend go to the next level supervisor. And if you can't get any recourse there, seek out the union, seek out the EEO, or unfortunately, you may have to look for a different job. And I don't want that to be the person's first choice, especially if you really like the work you do, you really like the environment. It's just your direct supervisor that you're having an issue with.
Right. Yeah. So as the employee, before I have that conversation with my manager, or maybe I'm about to have that conversation, how can I protect myself from that, sort of rain of negativity that's coming down on me? How can I keep myself from letting it affect how I then go out? So I don't then walk over to my neighbor and say, oh my gosh, here he comes again with his, negative and micromanaging. I can't take it anymore. And then we get to, chit-chatting or gossiping about that. And then it spreads. What tools could I do, or what tools could the individual do to kind of protect themselves from that negativity?
And that happens a lot. People do vent to their peers a lot, and then that person talks to somebody, and we know how the rumor mill works.
Yep.
So one thing I would recommend that employee does is really look back at the things that the boss is complaining about or griping about, and see if there's any validity to any of that, where there's some misunderstandings that came into play. But more importantly, we spend 8, 9, however many hours of the day at work, and that's a lot of hours.
Yes.
But at the same time, I really encourage, every time I'm talking to people, whether it's individuals or corporations, I always emphasize, if you just take a second to be grateful while you're in the midst of this chaos at work. And I know it's difficult because I've been there. I have allowed the negativity to impact me, and I did not do what I'm telling you right now that I tell people to do. But the more I started to practice it, and it wasn't easy. So I'm not like trying to sell people rose-colored glasses like, hey, yeah, you can do this, because I've struggled with that too. But a lot of times we get caught up in that moment, and we're so forgetful of all the things that are going right, like other things that are going right in the workplace, things that are going right in our lives, because we allow that one moment to dominate us. So if we can kind of take a breather, and it's great to walk around when you're really upset, and it's good for your health too. Take a walk, take your phone. We all have headsets, listen to some calming music, whether it's rain noises or whatever, and just take 5 or 10 minutes to walk away from that environment that's creating all this stress and tension, and try to think clearly. And if it's a nice day, like even though it's raining right now, it feels great. And the rain is very therapeutic itself. Even if you have to step outside and let the air and the vitamin D hit you, it's very important to be able to step away from that environment, even if it's just 5 minutes, to get some clarity. And even in the midst of that moment of chaos and stress, think about all the things that are going right. And again, I know this is not easy, but the more you do it, the more it'll have a positive effect on your life.
I love that, because you're right. And I'm sure it is hard, especially when it's not what we always do. But giving yourself that pause, I can see that. As a mom, I've had to do it with my kids. Had to go sit in my car in the driveway and just give myself 10 minutes of quiet.
Yes,
my head was going to explode. I forget that you can do that in the office setting too.
Yeah, you can.
Give yourself a timeout. Take 10 and get a breather. Oh my gosh, that's helpful. Are there things that organizations can do, or things that maybe employees can get together and do to help encourage positivity in the workplace? Do you recommend any particular type of thing, maybe bringing in, I don't know, like a meditation person or a yoga class or something? Is that something an organization can do to help their employees manage not just their work stress, but their home stress, or their home stress and their work stress? Do you recommend things like that for organizations?
Yeah, I'm finding more and more organizations have gyms or workout facilities on site or in their buildings. And I know my organization, they have a gym on site. They have yoga at lunchtime. They even have a nutritionist who comes in and give healthy eating classes that tend to fill up very fast. So they have multiple things. They have a massage person who comes in, and you can pay for a 20-minute massage or a 15-minute massage. Some people may prefer to do that on their 15-minute break or their lunch break. Wellness as a whole is becoming integrated more into organizations, because they're starting to see that really does play a role in how employees interact at work and how they perform and the overall productivity and how it impacts their customers. if you have employees who are able to every now and then get that zen, right? And like a lot of organizations now are doing employee resource groups or affinity groups where they may have golfing groups or tennis groups or knitting groups or something going on, or people who like to read comic books, where they can have some type of collaborative interaction with their peers in the work environment. So that's really good too. So there are multiple things that organizations can do that allows employees to have an escape while they're at work, but still able to get the work done. Because if they're able to step away and do those things for 30 minutes a day, it really does make a world of difference.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that. Giving yourself a moment to breathe and pause so that you can kind of regroup and then feel motivated to want to work, as opposed to, why am I here? What am I doing here? I'm feeling, worn down. Can we talk for a moment about inter-employee relationships? Because sometimes it may not be the manager, and it may not necessarily be the culture, but it may be, everybody wants to just stand around the water cooler and gossip. And what can we do to protect ourselves from, feeling the effects of some of that may be going on?
And of course, we know that happens in every environment. So first, don't participate in it. I know that sounds like, well, duh. But yeah, if you find that happens a lot, because we all know, even if you interject one sentence, somebody can very easily say, well, Nicole said, and all you did was say, oh yeah, I agree, but everybody else added the other 90%, and your I agree was only 10%, but somewhere or another you were the bad guy, right? So one of the first ways is just don't participate. And sometimes you want that friend at work, or you want to be close to somebody at work. And we know that gossip bonds people and misery loves company. But you have to think about, this is a work environment. What is the impact if you're an active participant in that? And if that's not the outcome, is not something you want to welcome into your life, then just don't do it, So do you have tips on how to handle the situation? If I'm at the water cooler and I'm, having a drink and just taking my 5 minutes, and someone's come along and they're starting to engage in this conversation, and it doesn't seem so bad in the beginning, and it's okay, here we go. And then it just starts to become increasingly more negative. What tips would you give? Do I just turn and walk away? Is there something I can say so that, because I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to now be the target of the gossip. But I don't want to deal with it. What can I do? Sometimes, especially if it's it's a little easier for us women, because we can easily change the conversation. Like, girl, those shoes are really
That's
cute.
True. That helps.
Like if somebody's complaining about something and you're like, that's really bad. But on a higher note, I am loving your hair today. And it completely changes the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So if you bring up something positive while that person's in the midst of something negative, like whether you talk about their kids or you talk about the hair or talk about something that they're wearing, even with guys, if they like sports, and I'm not going to generalize that all guys like sports, because all guys don't like sports.
Right.
But if you see that he's somebody who's into ties or somebody who's into sports or cars, change the conversation to something that makes them smile and make them happy. You're not being disrespectful by not hearing them out, but at the same time, you kind of put a close to what they're saying negatively, like, I really hate that happened. But on a higher note, I'm a Saints fan because I'm from Mississippi and that's our home team. Did you see that the Saints are in the playoffs this year? And all of a sudden it's no longer a negative conversation. It's something of interest to that person, and their whole body language, their nonverbals have changed as well. So, that's something you can do. Or if they're talking about something negative, if you're a very positive person and you have ideas, then maybe you can give them recommendations. Oh, well, maybe you should talk to Nancy about what's going on, or talk to Dave about what's going on if you're really having an issue with it, because it may be a misunderstanding. Give them a different perspective, because we tend to be very subjective when we feel like we're the person receiving a negative action. And if you're somebody who can honestly give them a different perspective and a different point of view, and give them a positive way to address what they're venting to you. And I do that all the time, So, but everybody's not good at that. So find that thing that you're good at without engaging in that negative conversation.
I love that. And I love that tip about just, find that one thing that's going to make them smile, right? And just kind of get them out of that mood or that moment. I love that. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to use that all the time. So Is it possible for people to have a toxic work environment when they're working from home?
It is possible because sometimes when people are working from home, you feel like, oh, now people are because there are some bosses who don't trust their employees who are working from home. So they're going to call them all the time. They're going to send them emails all the time. They're going to see how long it takes them to respond. And that's a form of toxicity. And if you have a boss who's like that and it's overwhelming for you, you have the option to say, hey, I'm just not going to telework. Or you're just going to be like, okay, this is just how my boss is. I know this is their behavior. I'm doing my job, so I'm just going to ignore that and respond to them, answer when they call. A lot of times if you're doing the right thing, you're able to kind of just like, that's just how Nicole acts. I can't change that. The good thing is I don't have to deal with traffic, and I didn't have to get dressed this morning, and I get to stay home in my pajamas if I want to. So, but yeah, it is possible for people to have that.
Yeah. So some of the same things would apply then, maybe having the conversation.
Yes.
If you have that manager that is micromanaging, maybe addressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you have some managers who want to outline of what you're doing the entire day where you're teleworking. Well, if you're not requiring that when people are in the office, then you really shouldn't require that when people are not in the office. So then that becomes into, if you have a union, that may become a union issue, that may become a telework policy issue, because really you should be treating employees the exact same, whether they're physically there or somewhere else, right? So if you're not making it a requirement when they're there, then that shouldn't be a requirement. But some bosses do, and that creates toxicity as well, because now you want to outline every second of my day, but you don't do that when I'm in the office.
Right. And I love that you brought up that gratitude point again, like, well, at least I didn't have to fight traffic today.
Right.
I'm still here. It's raining and I didn't have to go outside.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I love that. I love that. So if you have one final tip to leave people with, what would it be? What would you say to our viewers to tell them that here's one thing to take away that will help you, whether you're working from home or working in the office, to keep yourself protected from those workplace toxins?
Well, one thing that I would recommend is try not to get sucked in by the negativity, because it would definitely impact every area of your life. When you see that it's weighing very heavily on you, and I know I've said it and I'm going to say it again, try to be grateful. Think about that person who wished they had your job. Right. Think about that person who can't afford to do things because they're not making what you're making, or they're not working where you're working. There's always something positive in the midst of a bad situation. So, if you're not that person who want to have all this negativity coming into your life that happens in the workplace, then find ways to disconnect from that, whether it's taking a walk, listening to uplifting TED Talks, have the app on your phone, take a walk, listen to rain noises, have a moment of meditation, go to yoga on the job, disconnect from the toxic coworkers. There's so much you can do. And again, I know it's not easy, but you have to, baby steps is forward motion. So the more you practice it, the more it becomes habit for you. And always, always find something to be grateful for.
I love that. And that's universal, right?
Yes.
You can take that on the road and take it anywhere with you. I love that. That's great. Oh, Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your advice and your wisdom and your tips and your insight. Really, really valuable stuff here today.
Thank you.
And for our viewers, Nicole has been super generous. She is giving us all her Toxic Work Environment book. So when you're done here, click on the link below and you're going to find the link that's going to get you her ebook. So get it, check it out, read it, digest it, utilize some of these tips, right? We're all going to go find a way to get more gratitude and so we can not bring things home with us and not take things back in with us, right? Yes. Sounds wonderful. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. And viewers, don't forget to tune in again to more Detox Your Life, where you're going to release your toxins, restore your vitality, and create the life you love.